Hi, and welcome to Comedy Recap. Today we'll be discussing the 1995 American comedy film titled Tommy Boy. Watch out, spoilers ahead. The movie begins with a female voice calling out the name Tommy, adding that he was going to be late for school again. A young boy climbs down a treehouse and rushes to the door only to hit his face. He sprints to catch the bus, taking shortcuts, causing him to misplace his history textbook and lose his food to a dog. Then we meet Richard, who is riding his bicycle to school. He tells Tommy that he's late again in a rude tone. Time passes, and we see Tommy is now a grown man attending Marquette University, but he still has the habit of being late for the bus. Tommy tries taking a shortcut to catch up with the bus, but hits his head on a fence under construction. He rushes to get to school on time for his final exam, but finds out that he can't open the door, and it's locked. He gets frustrated and eventually sits down, only to watch a girl open the door easily and walk in. He makes it to class, panting heavily, and his lecturer stares at him oddly as he distributes the exam papers. He barely graduates from the university with a D+ grade after 7 years, but he's full of joy and celebrates more than anyone else. Tommy soon returns to his hometown of Sandusky, Ohio. He meets his longtime classmate Richard. Richard picks him up from the airport, and we learn that Richard is Tommy's father's assistant. Tommy is welcomed home very warmly, though he causes several messy scenes in the few minutes that he's back. His father is an industrialist and widower who goes by the name Thomas R. Big Tom Callahan Jr. He gives Tommy a surprise, an executive job at the family's auto parts plant. Big Tom asks Richard to look after Tommy until he gets his feet wet. Before leaving the new office, he states that he has another surprise for Tommy back home. Big Tom goes home with Tommy and reveals that he plans on marrying Beverly Barish Burns on the upcoming Saturday. As they sit and discuss as a family, Tommy asks how the two met. Big Tom tells him Beverly worked at the Fat Farm, which was where they met, and she was one of the trainers. Big Tom states that she was the only trainer he didn't want to plant 6 feet under a lotus patch. We learn that Beverly has a son, who we will later know as Paul. Beverly mentions that Tom would now have a brother, and that Paul will arrive soon at the house for the wedding. That night, Tommy takes Paul cow tipping. As they stand looking at the cows, Tommy begins to explain how to tip a cow. He attempts to tip one, but slips, falling onto cow dung and causing the cows to panic, which leads to a stampede. Luckily, Paul offers to wash him off with some gasoline. The next morning, we see Richard about to enter Tommy's office to inform him that Big Tom wants him to check the delay problems they were having at the loading dock. When he hears a strange noise and decides to listen, it turns out to be Tommy speaking into the fan. Tommy tries to help out with some work stuff, but makes a mistake and gets insulted by one of the staff. Tommy then meets Michelle, his longtime classmate. She works in the company and is in charge of all the shipping orders. Tommy asks about Michelle's brother, and she reveals that he is now a cop since he had to get a real job when her parents moved away. Soon, the day of the wedding comes. After the couple say their vows, Big Tom stands to make his presentation and thank all the people who showed up for his wedding. He calls Tommy to the stage with him. They sing a beautiful duet and dance energetically on stage. However, before they can finish the song, Big Tom falls and dies from a sudden heart attack at the wedding reception. After the funeral, we see a very sad Tommy walking alone. Tommy takes Michelle on a boat ride sometime after. He mentions that his dad gave it to him and that they both would come out late at night, with Big Tommy staying on the shore and talking to him. Doubting the future of the company without Big Tom, the bank reneges on promises of a loan for a new brake pad division and seeks immediate payment of all Callahan Auto's debts. Tommy suggests a deal using his inheritance as collateral, in exchange for the bank giving them time to sell enough brake pads to prove the new division's viability. If Tommy can successfully sell enough brake pads, the bank would grant the loan. Tommy then sets out on a cross-country sales trip with his father's assistant, Richard, who is pissed off that Tommy is lazy, yet rewarded for it. As they travel, they preach the idea of the brake pads to different potential clients. After being rejected by various clients, one client shows interest in the brake pads. As Tommy begins to explain, he gets too excited and unintentionally damages the vintage metal car on the table and sets it on fire, leading to rejection from the client. His social anxiety and hyperactivity discourage several buyers. Tommy is given the job of filling the car tank, while Richard goes ahead to ask for directions, so they can get to the next client. He tries to get the pump to the car, but after several failed attempts, he decides to reverse the car, but damages the door in the process. He forces the door to close and pretends like nothing happened. As Richard tries to open the door, it falls off, and Tommy acts like Richard was the one who damaged it. Meanwhile, Beverly and Paul are shown kissing. We learn that they are con artists with criminal records, and definitely not mother and son. They have plans on milking Big Tom for all his money. Beverly's plan was to marry Big Tom and eventually sue for a divorce after a year, taking possession of half of Big Tom's estate. Next, Paul somehow gets electrocuted as he pees. The next time we see him, he is with a bandage on his ear from the accident. Beverly has now inherited a sizable percentage of the company. To turn that into money, she needs a quick sale of the factory. Meanwhile, Tommy and Richard get into a fight, triggered by the lack of progress and Tommy damaging a lot of things. When all hope seems lost, Tommy persuades a waitress to serve him after the kitchen has been closed. Surprised by what just happened, Richard suggests that Tommy uses his skill of convincing people to make sales. He states that there are two kinds of smart, the book smart and the street smart. He points out that Big Tom was street smart, which helped him make sales. The two begin to make steady sales, and it isn't long before they pass the sales goal. But little do they know, Paul has begun to sabotage the company by sneaking into Michelle's office and disorganizing the sales information on her computer. As Michelle approaches the office, Paul pretends to be making a call to his mother and then asks about her relationship with Tommy. The conversation is cut short as his top is sucked into a vacuum. This somehow causes all sales information assembled by the manager, Michelle Brock, to be either lost or rerouted. Tommy is informed about the incident and that half the sales have been canceled. This causes the bank to decide to sell Callahan Auto to a very large corporation named Zelinsky. Tommy makes up his mind to travel to Chicago, hoping to persuade Mr. Zelinsky to reconsider. Unable to get a plane ticket, Tommy comes up with a plan. He and Richard dress like flight attendants to board the plane. Once they arrive at their destination, Tommy and Richard split up in search of Zelinsky. He yells at the top of his voice, saying, "Everybody listen up!" The people think it's a robbery and immediately fall to their feet, with the security even tossing their guns forward. It dawns on him, and he immediately flees. Ultimately, they meet Zelinsky on an elevator, where they have a very brief meeting. Zelinsky reveals that he only wanted the name and reputation connected with the Callahan brand, and would close down the company and lay off its workers. He asks security to escort both Richard and Tommy out of the building. As they wallow in self-pity, Tommy and Richard reflect on the past. Michelle shows up, informing them about Paul and Beverly's police record. Tommy devises a plan. He dresses as a suicide bomber by using road flares, and he attracts the attention of a live television news crew, and then, along with Michelle and Richard, forces his way back into the boardroom. Back in Sandusky, Callahan workers watch the drama on television. In a final move of pure genius, Tommy quotes Zelinsky's advertising slogan, that he is on the side of the American working man. As the TV audience watches, Zelinsky signs Tommy's purchase order for 500,000 brake pads. Zelinsky laughs and states that the purchase order is meaningless as he will soon own the factory. As Paul sees what is happening, he says that Tommy has lost his right to the factory. Michelle hands the police records to Tommy, which includes Paul's outstanding warrants for fraud, and also states that Paul is married to Beverly. And since Beverly is technically married to Paul, her marriage to Big Tom was bigamous and therefore not legal, meaning all of Big Tom's shares belong to Tommy. Tommy calls off the deal with Zelinsky, still holding Zelinsky's purchase order, and the company is saved. Paul attempts to escape, but is quickly apprehended before leaving the building. Zelinsky admits that Tom outplayed him and invites Beverly to dinner. The film ends with Tommy being appointed as the president of Callahan Auto. And that's a wrap for Tommy Boy. Let us know your thoughts in the comments section. If you would like to look into other videos with us, be sure to like and click the subscribe button so you don't miss a single video. Thanks for watching.